Hello everyone and welcome to Chill English channel. I'm Sophia and I'm very happy you decided to spend some time with us today.
And I'm Jake. Wherever you are listening from, maybe at home, on your way to work, or relaxing with a cup of coffee, we hope you feel comfortable and enjoy practicing English with us.
Today we're talking about something that comes up very often when you meet new people, your occupation, your job, and what you do for work.
Yes, because sooner or later, someone will probably ask you, what do you do? And if you're learning English, that simple question can sometimes make you nervous.
Especially because people usually don't want to answer with only 2 words. If someone asks what you do, you might want to explain your job, where you work, what your responsibilities are, and whether you enjoy it.
So today we'll practice natural ways to have that conversation at a B1 to B2 level. You don't need complicated business English, you just need useful language that sounds comfortable and natural.
Before we get deeper into it, here is a question for you to think about while you listen. If you met someone new today, how would you describe your occupation in English?
Maybe your answer is easy. You could say, I'm a teacher, I'm an engineer, or I work in a bank.
Or perhaps your situation is harder to explain. Maybe you're self-employed, you work from home, you have 2 different jobs, or you're currently looking for work.
And maybe you're a student who also works part-time. There are many possibilities, so there isn't one perfect answer for everyone.
Jake, imagine we have just met at a party and I know nothing about you. I'm going to ask you the classic question. So, Jake, what do you do?
Well, I work in digital marketing. I help companies promote their products online, especially through social media and online advertising.
See, that already sounds more interesting than simply saying, I'm a marketer.
Exactly. Your job title is useful, but adding one simple sentence about what you actually do makes the conversation much easier to continue.
So I could ask, how long have you been working in digital marketing?
And I could say, I've been working in this field for about 6 years. I started shortly after university.
Do you enjoy it?
Most of the time, yes. I like the creative side of the job and I enjoy working with different people. But there are definitely stressful days too.
I think almost everyone can say that about their job.
Probably. If someone says every working day is perfect, I have a few questions for that person.
Now, notice something important. I asked, what do you do? I did not ask, what is your occupation?
Both are correct, but what do you do is extremely common in everyday conversation. What is your occupation sounds more formal and is often used on forms or in official situations.
You might see the word occupation when you're completing an application. For example, a form could say name, age, occupation.
But if you meet someone at a cafe, please don't suddenly look serious and say, what is your occupation?
You can, but you might sound like you're interviewing them for something.
Exactly. In a relaxed conversation, what do you do or what do you do for work usually sounds more natural.
And there are several natural ways to answer. You can say, I'm a graphic designer. That uses the verb to be plus the job title.
Or you can talk about the place or industry. For example, I work at a hospital, I work for a technology company, or I work in finance.
Those little words are important, at, for, and in. Learners sometimes mix them up.
A simple way to remember them is that at often introduces your workplace, for introduces your employer, and in can introduce your industry or field.
So I might say, I work at a university.
Or, I work for an international company.
Or, I work in education.
Or you can combine these ideas. You might say, I work for a small company in the tourism industry.
That gives the other person enough information to ask another question.
Which is important because conversation is not an exam. You don't have to give a perfect speech about your career.
That's a good point. Sometimes English learners prepare a very long answer because they're worried they won't know what to say.
Then someone asks, what do you do? And suddenly they give their complete employment history from age 18.
Including the summer job they had for 3 weeks.
Exactly. You usually don't need that much information. Start with 2 or 3 sentences and allow the conversation to develop naturally.
Okay, Jake, now ask me.
Sure. Sophia, what do you do for work?
I work as an English teacher. I mainly teach adults, and a lot of my work focuses on helping people become more confident when they speak.
How long have you been teaching?
For several years now, I actually started by helping a few students privately, and over time, it became a much bigger part of my professional life.
What do you like most about your work?
Probably seeing someone become more confident. Sometimes a learner understands English quite well, but they're afraid to speak because they're worried about making mistakes.
And then after some practice, they start talking more freely.
Exactly. That moment is very rewarding for me.
Rewarding is a useful word when discussing work. If something is rewarding, it gives you a strong feeling of satisfaction because you believe what you're doing is valuable.
For example, someone might say, "Teaching can be challenging, but it's very rewarding."
Or a nurse might say, my job is demanding, but helping patients makes it rewarding.
And demanding is another useful word. A demanding job requires a lot of effort, attention, time, or energy.
So when someone asks whether you like your job, you don't always need to say only yes or no. You can give a more balanced answer.
You could say, "I enjoy it overall, although it can be stressful sometimes."
Or it's quite demanding, but I like the people I work with.
Or even, "It's not my dream job, but I'm learning a lot from it."
That last one is especially useful because not everyone loves their current occupation, and you don't need to pretend that you do.
Right. Talking naturally means being able to explain both the positive and difficult sides of your work.
And once you can describe not only your job title, but also what you do, how you feel about it, and what your typical responsibilities are, a simple question about work can turn into a much more interesting conversation.
Now that we can introduce our occupation naturally, let's talk about another common question. What exactly do you do at work?
Yes, because knowing someone's job title does not always tell you what their daily work actually looks like.
For example, if someone says, "I'm a project manager," you might understand the title, but you may still wonder what that person does all day.
They could say, I organize projects, communicate with different teams, solve problems, and make sure everything is finished on time.
That sounds much clearer, and a useful word here is responsibility.
Your responsibilities are the tasks and duties that you are expected to take care of as part of your job.
So someone might ask, "What are your main responsibilities?"
And you could answer, I'm responsible for answering customer emails and preparing weekly reports.
"I'm responsible for" is a very useful expression when you want to describe your occupation professionally.
For example, I'm responsible for managing a small team, or I'm responsible for checking orders before they are sent to customers.
Jake, what would you say your main responsibilities are in digital marketing?
Well, I plan advertising campaigns, look at performance data, prepare content ideas, and communicate with clients.
That sounds like quite a few different responsibilities.
It is, and sometimes all of them suddenly become urgent at exactly the same time.
Ah, yes, the magical moment when 5 people tell you, "I need this as soon as possible."
Exactly. And somehow everyone believes their task is the most important one.
That brings us to another useful part of talking about work, describing your typical working day.
You might say, I usually start work at 8, or the first thing I do is check my emails and organize my tasks.
Then you can explain what normally happens during the day. For example, "I spend most of my morning talking to customers."
Or, I usually have 2 or 3 meetings in the afternoon.
Another very natural expression is, "Most of my time is spent."
For example, most of my time is spent working with clients, or most of my time is spent preparing documents.
And if every day is different, you can simply say that.
Yes, you could say, there isn't really a typical day because my schedule changes depending on the project.
That sounds very natural, especially for people who have flexible jobs.
Speaking of flexibility, more people now have different working arrangements, so it's useful to know how to describe them.
For example, you might work full-time, which usually means your job is your main employment and you work a standard number of hours each week.
Or you might work part-time, which means you work fewer hours.
You could also be self-employed, meaning you work for yourself instead of being employed by another person or company.
And if you work independently for different clients, you might describe yourself as a freelancer.
For example, "I'm a freelance photographer. I mostly work with small businesses and events."
Or, I'm self-employed. I run a small online store from home.
Another common situation is remote work.
If you work remotely, you do your job away from a traditional office, often from home.
And then there is hybrid work, where you work from home on some days and go into the office on others.
I think many people enjoy hybrid work because they get some flexibility without completely losing face-to-face contact with coworkers.
Although working from home can have funny problems too.
Definitely. You can be in an important meeting while someone is ringing your doorbell, your neighbor is making noise, and your internet suddenly decides it needs a vacation.
That is a professional skill by itself.
Now, what if you don't currently have a job? This is something learners sometimes feel uncomfortable talking about.
There is no reason to make the answer complicated. If you're looking for work, you can say, I'm currently looking for a job.
Or, I'm between jobs at the moment. Between jobs is a softer expression that means you are not working right now, but you expect to work again.
If you recently left a job to focus on something else, you can explain that too. For example, I recently left my job and I'm taking some time to decide what I want to do next.
Or maybe you're changing careers. In that case, you might say, I used to work in sales, but now I'm training to become a web developer.
That phrase, I used to work in, is very helpful for talking about a previous occupation.
You could also say, I worked as an accountant for 5 years, but I wanted to change.
Career changes can be exciting, but they can also feel scary.
Especially when you have experience in one field and suddenly become a beginner again.
Have you ever thought about changing careers completely, Jake?
Sometimes. On stressful days, I imagine opening a tiny cafe somewhere near the ocean.
Really? Would you actually enjoy running a cafe?
In my imagination, yes. But in my imagination, there are only 5 customers, everyone is friendly, and nobody complains about the coffee.
So basically, you want an imaginary cafe, not a real business.
That may be true. But I think many people occasionally wonder what their life would be like in a completely different occupation.
Absolutely. And talking about those ideas is another great way to practice English. You can say, if I changed careers, I'd like to work in.
Or, I've always been interested in, followed by the field that attracts you.
You can also talk about skills that transfer from one occupation to another.
Those are often called transferable skills. Communication, teamwork, organization, leadership, and problem-solving are good examples.
So even when someone changes careers, they're not necessarily starting from zero.
Exactly. They may be new to the occupation, but they already have useful experience and skills from their previous work.
Another question people often ask is, how did you get into this field?
That means, how did you begin working in this type of job?
You could answer, I studied it at university, but sometimes the story is less direct.
You might say, I actually studied something completely different, but I discovered this field through a friend. Or, I started as an intern, gained some experience, and eventually got a full-time position.
These kinds of details make conversations about occupations much more personal because you are no longer just describing a job title, you are explaining the path that brought you there.
Another important part of talking about your occupation is explaining how you feel about your work and what you would like to change in the future.
Yes, because your occupation is not always a permanent part of your life. Your interests, priorities, and plans can change over time.
Someone might ask you, where do you see yourself in a few years? That sounds a little like a job interview question, but people sometimes discuss it casually too.
You don't need a perfect 5-year plan. You can simply say, I'd like to gain more experience and take on more responsibility.
Take on more responsibility means accepting more important duties or tasks.
You might also say, I'd like to move into a management position if you hope to become a manager.
Or perhaps you're happy with your position, but you want a better work-life balance.
Work-life balance means having enough time and energy for both your job and your personal life.
That can be difficult, especially when work follows you home through emails and messages.
Yes, sometimes you finish work at 6, but your phone apparently doesn't know that.
Your phone says, hello, here are 3 more problems for you.
Very thoughtful of it.
So someone might say, I enjoy my job, but I'm trying to improve my work-life balance.
Or, I'm looking for a position with more flexible hours.
Flexible hours means you have some freedom to choose when you start and finish your work.
Another useful phrase is career growth. Career growth means developing professionally, learning new skills, and moving forward in your career.
For example, there are good opportunities for career growth at my company.
On the other hand, you might say, I don't see many opportunities for growth in my current position.
That could be one reason someone starts looking for another job.
Salary can be another reason, although people often talk about money more carefully, especially with someone they have just met.
Right. In some cultures, asking someone directly, how much money do you make, can feel too personal.
If you want to discuss salary in general, you can say, is the pay good in your field?
Or you can talk about your own situation by saying, the salary is reasonable, but I'd like better benefits.
Benefits are things you receive in addition to your salary, such as paid vacation, health insurance, or other support from your employer.
Now, let's imagine you meet someone at an event and want to have a natural conversation about work. Jake, shall we try a short example?
Absolutely. You start.
Hi, nice to meet you. So what do you do?
I'm an architect. I work for a small firm that mainly designs houses and small commercial buildings.
Oh, interesting. How long have you been working there?
About 3 years. I joined the company after finishing university.
What do you enjoy most about being an architect?
I like seeing an idea slowly become something real. It can be stressful when we have tight deadlines, but overall, I find the work rewarding.
Do you see yourself staying in the same field?
Definitely, although one day, I'd like to start my own firm.
See how naturally that conversation develops? We started with one simple question and learned about the person's workplace, experience, feelings, and future plans.
And none of the answers were extremely long or complicated.
That is worth remembering. Fluency doesn't mean using the longest sentence possible.
Sometimes learners know many advanced words, but they become so focused on using them that the conversation starts sounding like a university textbook.
Natural English is often simpler. The important thing is choosing clear words and connecting your ideas smoothly.
Let's review some useful vocabulary from our conversation.
The first word is occupation. Your occupation is the type of work you do.
For everyday conversation, however, you will often hear people say job, work, or ask, what do you do?
Next, we have responsibility. A responsibility is something you are expected to do as part of your job.
You can say, one of my main responsibilities is training new employees.
Another useful word is demanding. A demanding job requires a lot of effort, energy, or attention.
Then we have rewarding. Something rewarding gives you satisfaction because it feels valuable or meaningful.
We also talked about being self-employed, which means working for yourself rather than working as an employee for another company.
And freelancer describes someone who works independently, often for several different clients.
Another useful expression was work-life balance, meaning the balance between your professional responsibilities and your personal life.
And finally, career growth means developing your skills, experience, and opportunities over time.
Before we finish, let's give you a small speaking challenge.
Imagine that you have just met someone who asks, so, what do you do?
Try answering with 3 pieces of information: what you do, one of your main responsibilities, and something you like or dislike about your work.
For example, I work in customer service. I mainly help customers solve problems, and I like the job because I get to talk to different people.
If you're a student, you can adapt it. You could say, I'm currently a university student. I'm studying computer science, and I hope to work in technology after I graduate.
And if you're looking for work, you can say that confidently too. Your current employment situation does not stop you from having a good English conversation.
Now we have a question for you. What do you do, and what is one thing you enjoy about your occupation or field of study?
Write your answer in the comments using 2 or 3 sentences. It's a simple way to practice the expressions you heard today.
And try reading your answer out loud after you write it. Speaking the words helps you become more comfortable using them in real conversations.
You can even repeat parts of our conversation and practice shadowing our sentences until they feel natural.
Thank you for spending this time with us here on Chill English Channel. We hope you learned some useful ways to talk about your work, responsibilities, experience, and career plans.
Keep listening, keep speaking, and remember that you don't need perfect English to have a meaningful conversation.
Take care, keep practicing, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks for listening to Chill English Channel and have a wonderful day wherever you are.